What's up, guys? Oh, sorry. Don't be in the shower for too long. I got a kid with me. All right. So, what's up, guys? Today, we're going to be talking about the value of finding yourself a good practitioner. The idea that you need to find somebody who is local to you when possible, who you can trust, who you can go to, who will help you feel better. So I've already seen some names come on here who I know are doctors. So if you guys who are doctors could let me know, drop down below, drop a little D in there, let me know that you're a doctor. I'd like to hear from you guys. Who are my doctors? Who are the doctors on here? I saw Nick, Dr. Brandon Brown. I'm going to assume that you're a doctor, but let me know for sure. Good. I want to know who my doctors are. Perfect. If there's anybody else, Larry, my man, how are you? I have a workout to do again later today, Larry, if you'd like to join me. I'm going to be dragging a sled for an hour because, like a schmuck, I volunteered myself to do it. So, anyway, let's get right to it, right? Obviously, today I'm pulling double duty. So here's the deal. A lot of people, right, they don't want to go see a doctor when something is wrong. And I understand that. I understand the doctors are not inspiring. The doctors are not giving people what they need. The doctors are certainly not leading by example, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that all doctors are bad. It doesn't mean that all physical therapists are bad. It doesn't mean that all chiropractors are bad. So I want to kind of help you guys start to make decisions about how to find the best doctor, chiro, physical therapist, whatever you can to help you get what you need. Let's talk first about the importance of having one. I'm going to be interviewing some physical therapists this week on the podcast about the, I don't want to call it an epidemic, but the ease with which personal trainers, CrossFit coaches, whoever, prescribe corrective exercises. When I say corrective, I'm going to put those in quotes, right? So everybody wants to write corrective exercises for clients who are hurting. And I understand that. It's because you all got into this field because you want to help people. Sometimes the best way to help people is to find them somebody else who can help them. Here's an example. And by the way, I see Keith Van Wickler, KVW299 is on here. I see Larry the Active Intern is on here. Both of those guys work with me at Active Life. Both of them are coaches. And quite frankly, I would prefer to refer patients of mine to them than to most of the doctors who I know. So there is an opportunity for trainers to have a great role. But that being said, there's a lot of education and specific education that needs to come with that. So, what do I mean? Let's take, for example, somebody who you're working with in your gym who gets pain every time that they squat. If you're a coach, right? Stop. You can stay asleep for this. So if you're a coach and you have an athlete in your gym who gets pain in their back when they squat, what are you going to do about it? Right? You're going to start to squat them less, reduce the load, maybe change the range of motion, maybe move the bar from the back to the front, from the overhead to the front to the back, whatever it might be, you're going to change how they do it, and it's great, right? Or you're going to decide that a muscle isn't active enough, or they're not firing enough from a certain place, or that they don't have enough mobility in a certain place. But how are you measuring that? And yeah, asking questions. I have full faith that most of you guys who are on this talk are going to do the responsible thing for your clients, whether you're a doctor or a trainer or an athlete. But what I want you to start thinking about is, what is the difference between a doctor and a trainer? When do you need to go see one? When do you need to go see another? So let's start there. Doctors spend most of their time in school, and when I say doctors, I'm talking about chiropractors, physical therapists, medical doctors, orthopedists. They spend most of their time in school learning about diagnosis. Now, it's not all a diagnosis class, but the background that they're getting is such that they're getting specific information that helps lead them to choosing a diagnosis. This is what is wrong with you. because they have that background, if they're responsible about how they use it, those same doctors are able to say, okay, deductive reasoning, this person has this problem with this structure. That's going to cause the following compensation patterns. Look for those compensation patterns, make changes to them while rehabilitating that muscle at the same time. Oftentimes it's not a muscle, it's a movement behavior, right? So, for example, you can't do this, right? You go tell your trainer you have a torn rotator cuff. There's 4 muscles on the rotator cuff. Which one is torn? Where is it torn? How badly is it torn? What does that muscle do? How can we do the same thing, go overhead, without taxing that muscle? Those are things that some trainers understand, some trainers don't. What I would argue no trainer understands without medical background is what is the order of operations for rehabilitating a muscle that has that kind of a tear. Each specific level of a tear, full thickness tear, longitudinal tear, cross fiber tears, closer to the tendon, further from the tendon, 1 millimeter, 14 millimeters, right? There are very different and specific protocols for all those different types of tears. There are things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do. Somebody just got out of surgery, right? If you take it to the extreme, that's really what we're looking at. If somebody just came out of surgery, let's pretend that you're a trainer and somebody just came out of surgery for their labrums. They have both labrums done. And now they're coming to you saying, hey, I can't go overhead, what do I do? Would you feel confident writing a rehab program for that person? That's a question I want you guys to be asking yourself, right? Because I'm going to be frank with you. I have almost 8 years experience helping people rehab. I study every day to get better. I practice every day to get better. And I wouldn't take that person. What does that mean for trainers who don't study rehab all day, every day, right? It means they shouldn't take that person either. Doctors who aren't capable shouldn't take that person either. But now I want to extrapolate that down. At what point in that person's injury journey do you feel like, oh, you know what, I am responsible enough to take this on? And my argument is that for trainers, most of the time, the answer is never. Because there's always going to be another level of information that you don't have. And that's fine, right? You don't have to rehab people. You didn't get into training to rehab. You didn't go get your CrossFit level 1 or your NASM or your CSCS. You didn't do any of those things so that somebody could come to you with a torn labrum and you could fix it. Or they come to you with a partial thickness tear of the supraspinatus and you could write a rehab program. That didn't happen. You don't understand, with all due respect, what that means. And now I get it. There are some of you who are going to watch us and be like, no, but I do. I spent 5 years shadowing physical therapists. I asked a million questions. I got my, I went to my FMS, whatever. It doesn't matter. Great. I'm talking to the 99% of you who don't have that knowledge. And my advice is to pass that person on. If you're the athlete with these problems, my advice is to find somebody who can handle that problem, who only wants to handle that problem. And here's what I mean by that, right? You don't want me writing your CrossFit program. You just don't. Could I do it? Sure. Would it be as good as the best CrossFit coaches in the world? Hell no. Definitely not. You do not want me writing your CrossFit program. You do want me writing your rehab program. Huge difference, right? I'm writing 20 to 60 minutes a day of work for you that's all going to be strict and grinding and crappy and boring and monotonous, but inspiring because it's going to be stuff that you're doing. So CrossFit Hack just wrote, there's probably a huge benefit of having one system where the PT or Chiro is in the same facility as the CrossFit gym, work together, share knowledge and the workout plan. Huge value. And you're taking a peek into our future. that is what we are going to be doing for people like you down the line, is training CrossFit gyms to get all the way, fit coaches to get as far as they possibly can without leaving their scope, and then to bring doctors all the way as far as we can without having them leave their scope. Because if everyone trains to the margins of their scope, we fill in all the voids. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what we do on a regular basis, right? I partner with Jay Layden, with Nick Fowler, with a variety of coaches on how to help their athletes, but I'm not writing their CrossFit program. We're looking at their cycle rates. We're looking at how many times they're doing something. We're looking at joint loading. We're looking at all kinds of stuff, but I'm going to go to the margins of my experience and stop there. And then I'm going to ask them to start there because that's where their margins begin. And I think that's the responsible thing to do. So when do you need a coach? When do you need a doctor? You need a doctor. By the way, not any doctor. You need a doctor who understands your needs and wants and your aspirations. So you need a doctor when you are in a situation where a given set of movements causes you pain. Right? A given set of movements causes you pain. I don't care what the loading is. I don't care if it's close to your 1 rep max or it's close to your 20 rep max. If a given movement causes you pain, or if you have to compensate around a certain type of movement to do a different one, if your snatch has to be wider than it used to be, if you have to change the stance of your squat to get out of pain, you need a doctor. You need to go find a doctor, a chiropractor, physical therapist, orthopedist, whoever. Somebody who understands what you're trying to do, has the time, and is willing to spend the time to help you get better at that. Not to take it away from you, not to shoot you up with a cortisone or a lidocaine injection, not to operate on you, not to put you on anti-inflammatories, not to put you on a steroid, not to do any of those things. No muscle relaxers. We're talking about somebody who's willing to invest time and effort in making you move better. If you have pain or you need to compensate, you need to find a doctor to help you get better. All the coaches out there who hate on that, bring it. We'll talk about it. Now, if you don't need to compensate, right? If you're to the place where you're just not good at something and you need to get better at it, so you end up really, really sore, or your back hurts after too many reps of a given thing, you need to find a coach. You need to find a coach who's going to build your capacity. You need to find a coach who's going to do a really good job of recognizing that you're not a good squatter. You need to get better at squatting. Your positions when you squat stink. We need to make your positions better. Your skill is atrocious. Let's make your skill better. Your work to recovery ratio is not good. We need you to recover better. A coach can do all of those things. Hey, you can squat on 2 legs, but you can't squat on 1. We need to fix that, right? These are things that a coach can do. So Larry's asking, how do we distinguish between pain from horseshit movement and pain from orthopedic dysfunction? Oftentimes you can't, but I know what you mean. You draw the line when you can't correct horseshit movement. So when somebody's not improving their movement patterns from visit to visit, assume that they can't. When you're trying to train somebody to improve their movement patterns each time you see them, and they don't improve their movement patterns each time you see them, assume that it's not in your capacity to help them change their movement patterns. Assume that it's not in theirs, and find somebody who can help you. Find a local doctor who is really good and really interested, and let them help to improve the movement pattern. That's the job. Every client finds a bad doctor and then hides behind dysfunction that's outside the scope of their coach. Yeah, man. Lex, that's a great point. I knew what you meant. There is no every, there's no never, there's no always. But a lot of people end up in a bad doctor's office, write it off that no doctor can help them. Their coach becomes disenfranchised with the medical model because, quite frankly, the medical model sucks, right? And it's like, okay, well, we got to figure this out on our own. We got to turn your glutes back on. Bullshit. You don't know what you're doing, and that's why people aren't getting better, and that's fine, right? I don't want to write your Metcons. perfect question, for example, lower back DOMs after heavy deadlifts affecting my CNS 2 days after. That's a question. Are you asking if they're affecting your CNS 2 days after? Yeah. DOMs can be a 48 to 72, sometimes even a week long load. Hold on one second. There might be somebody here to see me. Hold on. I think my dog is just going nuts. I would have gotten a text. But yeah, your CNS can be overloaded for days. It can be overloaded for a week. So, but that's going to be your coach. That's not a doctor. You don't need a doctor to decide if your CNS is just overloaded. That's a coach's job. You heard me talk about cortisone injections while you were talking. Do I, in general, have an opinion if they're worthwhile? I usually think a cortisone shot is not worthwhile. There are occasions when it is, but they are few and far between. Cortisone shots are a massive anti-inflammatory that are locally injected to a spot where you're having dysfunction, but they promote early breakdown of a joint, and they also change the way that you're going to move for a long time because you're no longer compensating for pain that you should be compensating for. Fix the problem, don't mask it. I don't like cortisone shots. We have 2 PTs and a chiropractor at our gym. One of our coaches has been on your Active Life seminars. Any thoughts on how we should get the PTs and the chiropractor involved? Phenomenal question. Send them to us as well. So Anthony, you're asking how you can get your PTs and your chiropractors from your gym involved with your coaches more. They need to buy in, right? If you have athletes in your gym who are going to see other doctors and they don't realize already that they're not doing the job, then they're the wrong chiropractors or physical therapists to have in your gym. But what I would recommend to you is get those guys to one of our workshops. Get those guys on our coach program. Get those guys emailing us. We will coach them up on how to better integrate into your gym setting. We have a workshop coming up July 29th and 30th. We have 2 spots left. We haven't marketed it since maybe a week and a half ago, but we have 18 out of 20 spots are sold and accounted for. We have 2 spots left. If your doctors or PTs want to come, they should. And your coach who has been to one of our seminars could probably vouch for that. They should be there. It'll help with their communication to the coaching staff. Direct message me if you want more information on that, and we'll get you the information on how to get them to the workshop. That's it, guys. This is pretty straightforward. You want to go from poor performance to high performance? Find a coach. You want to go from compensating and being in pain to not compensating and not being in pain? Find a doctor. If there isn't a doctor near you who's any good, that sucks. That's what we're here for, right? Unfortunately, there's a place for us in the world. Our place is there aren't enough good local doctors, so we are filling that void by helping people remotely. I hope to create an environment in which what we do becomes obsolete because there's enough doctors doing what we do locally. I don't think that's going to happen in the next 15 to 20 years worldwide, so I think we'll still be in business for a while. But that's it, right? If you can find a doctor who works with us in your area, you don't need us. Now, there's only about 8 in the world so far, but we're working on that. But websites to visit, integrativediagnosis.com. Head to integrativediagnosis.com. I'm not going to type it in there today for obvious reasons. Integrativediagnosis.com. If you can't spell it, different problem. That's where I would go to look for a doctor local to you who can work on some soft tissue work. I don't know what DFW is, but type it in, integrativediagnosis.com, and look up a doctor in your area. That's how you do it. There are great doctors who are not on that website. We are no longer on that website. I just stopped paying. Right? But that's where I would start. Do you guys have any questions? I'm here for questions for about 5 minutes. I gotta eat a protein shake and suck up that I'm about to drag a sled for a mile because I'm an idiot and I said yes to somebody. Head to performancecarerx.com. That's where the podcast is. That's where the YouTube channel is. If you guys could rate the podcast and subscribe to the podcast, that would be great. We would love to move up in the rankings. We're doing pretty well. which is pretty cool. Better than we thought we'd do early on, but I would love for you guys to head to the podcast, rank the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. If you've already ranked the podcast, rank it again. Give yourself a new name. That's it, guys. Got nothing else for you today. The Active Life Podcast is where you're going to go. You can just type that into your iTunes or your Stitcher. That's it. That's it, guys. Good talk today.